talk me through now where your companies are, and what does that creative role even look like, as you're kind of taking a completely different role and trying to be the face of things and create the content, etc. What does the org look like? What does your day to day look like as now an entrepreneur and building three different companies?
Yeah. Um, Honestly, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the
Yeah.
reality of the situation. I'd say from a personal standpoint. For me, the last year, I've really enjoyed life. Like when I say enjoyed life, I've put the priority back in my own mental health, my own wellness, my own training. Things are important to me from an experience standpoint, and I'm fortunate that the business got to the point to facilitate that. And that has always been ultimately the goal. Got to a point in business where I'm then able to do what I love doing. Like, why else do we build businesses, you know? And it got to a point where over the last year, I wanted to make sure I had that freedom to be able to do that. I love travel, I love experience, and that was of the highest priority to me. And we went from 2 members of staff to 16, 17 members of staff in that period of time to facilitate that, because prior to that period, I was doing everything for every business, you know, and it consumed me. It was from 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning till 11, 12 p.m. at night. And I'm like stressed, depressed, not doing any of the things that I love doing, let alone the thing that actually fills my cup up, which is having conversations like this,
Yeah.
making new connections and training. None of that was happening. And a year or so ago, I just decided, you know what? I'm happy that we're potentially not going to grow too much in this next year, because I'm going to fill up this side of the cup. And that was, I'm not going to say selfish of me, because that's what I feel why we do what we do,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. So that's where we've been for the last year. From a personal life standpoint, I'm going through a lot of changes at the moment, and I think you've always got to be mindful of that when you're trying to make changes in your personal life alongside drastic change in your business. It's a recipe for disaster. And for me, I'm in that transitional period where I'm traveling a lot at the moment, and I'm heading back towards being settled again,
Mm.
for a period of time. And this is why I look at like business in waves, where you have your growth phase, and then you consolidate,
Yeah.
and you review, and then you evolve and you take that next step. And you've got to be open to doing that in business, because times change, like fashion changes.
Yeah.
And we're in that now transitional period where I'm heading towards settling down and getting my head down, and then making some big plays in the next 6 months, from an evolving standpoint. And sometimes you need that chill time and that step away from the head down trenches to be able to realize, one, what do my audience need? What do people want? What are people connecting with right now? It's one of the hugest benefits by why I still do my seminars. You know, like, all said and done, when I do my seminar tours, people probably think, oh, he's made loads of money doing that huge tour. You don't. When it's all said and done, you travel and you experience along the way, there's no real money made. That is a market research exercise. It's an exercise of relevance and being in the market for a period of time, which I've done for 6 months. And myself and my head of creative, Callum, we've learned a lot about where we need to go and where we need to head. And that takes you back into that stage in business, or when you're ready to grow again, to be excited about your next steps. And when you're selling and marketing the same product time and time again, that can be very, very monotonous.
Yeah.
And you can very quickly lose sight of the direction you need to head in. So that's what I've done. From an organizational standpoint, to come back to your question, I just wanted to premise it with kind of where I'm at from a personal standpoint first. But where we're at now is that the companies are split, they're separated. I've been fortunate enough in all three of those businesses to learn a lot about what works, what doesn't work, and understand where attention needs to be given in each of these areas. So they're very much separate businesses. Unfortunately, staff members work across all three, which, as we've discussed,
Yeah.
has its own issues. There's
Yeah.
something that will definitely change moving forward. I've understood that we need to get better at hiring people with high skill sets, and being prepared to invest in people with high skill sets. But that's something that is very hard to, I guess, deliver on sometimes if you're a small business. So because you're so protective of cash flow, whereas when actually you think about investment in development of a business, that's really where you should be putting it. And again, made those mistakes to learn that. Spent a lot of time training and developing and understanding the expectation you can
Yeah.
sometimes have of staff versus what they can deliver when they're in that situation. Two very different things. So we're now at the point where we're sitting down with all of these three businesses and we're understanding, okay, getting really clear on our core values and the direction that we want to take them, and making plans for them now moving forward.
When you look at your three businesses, do you see like Lifting Zone and Mobility Manual as like chapter one of Sunny, and then Big Friday Supplies as like chapter two? Because a lot of our conversations today have been about multiple fashion brands, right? And apparel. And like I could tell that is something you love. And you were talking about how going to Kith and experiencing the whole thing. Like I don't think you're, when I think of probably Big Friday Supplies like 5 years from now, you're probably thinking about an entire experience versus just ecom. Like, do you see that as kind of chapter two of you and building like an apparel media, or not a media, sorry, an apparel just like empire?
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it because, like, I think back to 5 years ago, Big Friday Supplies, the Lifting Zone, the Mobility Manual were scribbles in a 2 pound diary. All of those businesses 5 years ago were scribbles in a diary. And now I look at where they are in 5 years. And we all know how quickly 5 years passes. So yes, when you ask me that question, if I dedicate the time and attention that those businesses deserve to it, and I bring the right people in, Big Fry Supplies, Send It brand alone can be huge.
Yeah.
Mobility Manual can scale to a point where I could sell that company in 5 years. The Lifting Zone is my legacy to the sport that I'm passionate about. Does it define me now as a human? No, but is there something there that I want to leave to say this was what I did to weightlifting? I modernized it. I made it accessible to the masses, and I did it through that business. Yes. And that's something that from a personal standpoint is where each of those businesses is going to lead, like in terms of what I want to do for the sport. There's still work to be done in each of those areas to make that a possibility. But again, like, I'd be lying if that doesn't scare me, because the reality of doing that on my own is going to be very challenging, and executing on each of those things. And this is where having the right people to support the journey is very important. But I have a clear understanding of what purpose each of those businesses serves.
What are the purposes for each one? Is Lifting Zone the legacy brand, the one that's going to impact as much people as possible? Modernized weightlifting, Mobility Manual is the one that you could sell and put money into other things. And then Big Friday Supplies is like, this is what I want to build for the next 20 years. Is that how you see it, or am I thinking about it wrong?
No, 100%. Like the Lifting Zone, like, my purpose with that is, like I said, the education is something in weightlifting that has been so dated for so long and so complicated. It's made it very difficult for people to go in and do weightlifting and find that something that's easy for them to get into. So the way in which we educate at the Lifting Zone allows people that are starting weightlifting after the age of 20 or 30 get into it and learn it very easily and feel a part of a community of people that are doing something similar. So that will trickle down, and that's something that we've just recently recorded an education segment to the Lifting Zone, which will allow people to qualify themselves as Lifting Zone coaches. Amazing. So that, again, I can reach more people and my knowledge can be passed down. From that's my, I guess, legacy from the teaching standpoint. But from an athlete standpoint, I look back at what it was like for me as an athlete, and I never got the recognition. Weightlifters still don't get the recognition that they deserve for what they put into their training. I want to change the way that the sport is competed in. I want it to look different, look exciting, look sexy, like a UFC event.
Mm-hmm.
And that in the long term is something that I also want to deliver on. So there's years and years of time that still needs to be spent in that company to tick the boxes that I need to do with that. Once that's done, great. Whether you look at that as that turns into then a gym franchise chain of TLZ gyms all around the world, and people have got a place where they go and weightlift and it's cool, and then they compete. Brilliant. There's potential there. When it comes to mobility manual, mobility is something that isn't sexy right now. No one likes to go in and spend 40 minutes stretching, you know. Yoga's a little bit more sexy. There's a company called Top Stretch, I think, from Russia, that are making stretching sexy from a brand image standpoint.
Yeah.
It's hitting that middle ground, I think, between making it not gender related, because there's still an association with yoga and brands like that's something that is feminine led, and actually make it a little bit more inclusive about the health benefits of having good range of motion. 9 times out of 10, the people that come to me and they say, Sonny, I want to be mobile, you'd be so surprised how many people say, because I want to play with my kids.
Really?
I want to be able to, you know, not feel in pain. Very rarely is it necessarily driven from the sport.
Athletics. Interesting.
You know, and that's where that market completely opens up. And again, there's potential that I build that as an online platform. But one of the biggest things that prevents people, and I'd say 70%, if not higher, of people that purchase the mobility manual never finish it. They need accountability. And this is where having a physical location, or again, building a franchise and selling that out and rolling that out at low cost and having bricks and mortar would be amazing. Do I have the skills and knowledge in that? No. Could I bring someone in to drill that and grow that? Yes. So again, I'm very open-minded in that, but I'm also aware of, like, it all comes down to making sure that the foundations are really strong in those areas. And then when it comes to Big Fries, Supplies, and Send It, that is me expressing my creativity and my passion for fashion. And again, where that has fell down so much, I think, in the last few years, is you can grow a brand to a point and do $250,000 a drop, and that quite easily.
Yeah.
But building something that is there to last, it's a challenging thing, because you cross over between creating a brand that is driven by hype and exclusivity versus something that is commercially viable. You need to be selling things every single day, all day long, to have the cash flow to facilitate the business and the growth of the business. Doing that whilst maintaining exclusivity and hype, very, very challenging. And you see even the biggest of brands going back on where they start over time, but that's a very challenging path to walk. We look at Nike. Let's look at the Jordan. And I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. I'm a bit of a sneakhead myself, but if you could get yourself a pair of 2016 Jordan 1 high tops and in an original colorway, it was like, wow. And other sneakerheads would look at them as well and go, wow, he's got some of them. I know they're the guts are 9 years old. They've been well kept. Cool. And he's paid way over premium for them. Nike go and take something, such a legendary sneaker, and re-release it 3 or 4 times. And all of a sudden, what we used to buy into that product for is no longer there, you know?
100%.
And that's a large scale explanation of what becomes challenging about growing a brand based on that. And this is where I think for a lot of brands now, and aside of e-commerce brands as well, you're buying in, and we were just discussing it, into a community or what a brand represents, as opposed to the functionality or the look of a product.
All right, so if you enjoyed that 10-minute clip, then I got something better for you. I got something actually very special, and that's the full episode. That's 45 minutes to an hour full of gems just like this, just scaled. And so if you want to listen to it, here's what you got to do. Just click the link on the screen. This is going to take you to the Sweat Equity channel with all the full podcast episodes. And you're going to be able to dive into the 1 hour of game that me and Brian spend probably way too much time prepping for, but it's for people like you. So like, subscribe, enjoy it, click it, and we'll see you on the other side.